the whole stigma surrounding addiction to really focus on it. You have a crazy story from what I've heard. And the way like you got brought out here to like treatment, like through intervention and that kind of being weird. And I kind of just wanted to see what your story is with stigma and addiction.
All right. Well, I can start out saying, like, when it comes to addiction, especially in today's society, how things are because of the fentanyl epidemic.
Yeah.
You know, it's really become a forefront to like everything that's going on, because I mean we're calculating what over 110,000 deaths this year just from overdoses. You know, I was in active addiction for 25 years. And I remember a point in time where, you know, the people that died were like the guys that went to jail for 6 months. They would come home, they would try to do the same amount that they did before they went to jail, and, you know, they would overdose and die. You know, so like death wasn't, it was there, but it's not as prevalent as it is today, especially in middle America. You know, so like for me, like, so not understanding like what addiction is, like I grew up in the late 80s, early 90s, where like we had the DARE program, and like the DARE program told us like just say no. You know what I mean? Like that whole thing, like just say no, like it's that easy, you know? So like we were in that era, in that generation of people, we were told that that's what it was. Like it was like we have this power of choice and we can just say no.
Yeah.
You know, growing up where I grew up, because, you know, I grew up in Philadelphia, and I grew up in a neighborhood in Philadelphia called Kensington, where, you know, drugs are rampant. You know, like being a young kid, walking out of my house and going to school, like it was normal to see people smoking crack and shooting heroin, and, you know, or like us going down to the Jersey Shore for the weekend and coming back, and, you know, squatters being in our house for the weekend. Like that was normal. You know what I mean? So it's like you've seen what drugs did, but you didn't, you know, but you go to school and you have these DARE programs and they tell you, you know, drugs is just like, just say no. Just don't do them. And then they would show us what drugs looked like, which we already knew.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, so that was our education on addiction.
Yeah, so all you knew as a kid growing up, it's like, that's what that looks like, addiction looks like, and then just say no.
Yeah, exactly.
That was it.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that was it. And so, you know, being young and growing up in the family I grew up in, you know, I'm one of 5 children, you know, and so like my older siblings, you know, like we had mom and dad at home, and then like at a young age, like my mom and dad like split up, and, you know, and not really having a safe, stable environment at home. You know, like I sought refuge through running the streets, you know, and then in the streets, it's like, you know, I got the older guys in the neighborhood, like telling me like, it's okay to drink. It's okay to smoke weed. It's okay to pop pills, you know? And so at a young age, which I didn't realize, I didn't know I was an addict at such a young age, you know, and I would put these drugs into my system, and then I would do things that I didn't understand that I was doing behind putting drugs in my system.
Yeah.
You know, like at a young age, like popping pills and going to steal cars and committing robberies and stuff. And I didn't understand the consequences of my actions until I started going to jail.
When did you start using, you said?
When I started using on a regular basis, I was 10. It was like smoking weed, drinking every weekend. You know, we would get the old, back in the day, we would get the double malt Colt 45s. And we drank the neck of it, and then we dropped 2 Xanax in there, and then guzzle the thing, and we'd be wrecked. And back then, like, you can get 3 40s for $5, 3 blue Xanax for $5, and a neck bag of weed. So for $15, like, it was on and popping for them. You know, but like growing up poor, we still needed to come up with that $15. So like it was normal for us to like sell neck bags of weed and steal cars and rob shit. You know what I mean?
So it was kind of just like the environment you were in.
Definitely.
And then also you believe that you were kind of born an addict.
Yeah. No, I wholeheartedly believe it, because like I see, like growing up in a family I grew up with, like I got a brother that's 5 years older than me, and when I was 12 going on 13, he went into the army. And he went in army, and he went in intelligence, and then he started working for the government, and now he owns his own business, and he's very successful. He's got a wife, 3 kids. when he was in the Army, did a lot of tours over in the Middle East. He'd be gone for like 6 months. He would come home after seeing a lot of chaos and death and all that. He would come home and he would take a couple days. He would sit in his basement and drink a little bit of scotch, and then when he was done, he would stop and he would go back to work. And, and he's a very good father. He's a pretty good husband. He's a really good son. He's capable of having a drink or two and putting it down and then showing up to work the next day. Mm-hmm. Like me, I introduce a substance into my body and it's all chaos is ensuing.
Like as soon as you put the first drink ever that you've ever had, you couldn't put it down.
I want to say it's
like, or you craved it down. You craved it.
Yeah, because now I know, right? So like I remember the first time that I ever picked up a drink, I was real young. I was probably about like 6 or 7 years old. And I remember, because we do a lot of correlation as human beings, like we'll correlate different things with what's going on in our lives. And I remember being real young and my grandpa was dying from cancer and he was in the house and my dad was there and like my dad's whole family was there and everybody was drinking. And I remember doing a shot with my grandpa and I'm like 6, 7 years old. And like I'm drinking with my dad. And that was one of the nights that I was around my dad and he was fucked up. And he didn't put his hands on my mom and he didn't put his hands on me or my siblings.
Yeah. So like when I drink with like my dad or like I drink, it's all good. Like I'm not gonna get you correlate it with like feeling safe and secure.
Yeah, exactly. And that's as a young kid, that's all I wanted because like it was in the house. Like I had to deal with my dad was like very violent, so I had to deal with that in the house. And then outside the house, growing up in the inner city of Philadelphia, I mean, and Philly's a fighting city. Mm-hmm. And growing up, that's how you had to earn your stripes, and then I didn't understand, like, cause growing up, like my dad would like beat me and my brother up. And then what was crazy, but like he would do it, but like save somebody else. Like I remember one time my aunt's boyfriend, he choked me up or something. I was like 8 or 9 years old and my dad tore him a new ass. You know what I mean? Cause like that was my dad's thing. Like, yeah, I might fuck you up, but I'm also going to protect you too. Yeah. So I had this false sense of like what love looked like and what safe looked like. You know what I mean? And that's all I really wanted is like I wanted a piece of safety, because like you would see like watch TV and and I had family that lived out in the suburbs and I'd see how it was out there and I'd be like, man, this is the life, Mm-hmm. So like, but yeah, so I didn't understand at a young age, like that I correlated getting high with not only safety, but acceptance as well.
Yeah.
And then I go to school and at there, they would tell us it's a choice. So like in my mind, I thought, I'm young, I'm having fun.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that when I was young, I did things and the consequences of those things ultimately affected the rest of my life. Catching felony charges as a teenager and going to jail at a really young age, it wound up affecting. So when I became a young man, like over 18, like I couldn't go into the military. I couldn't get certain jobs. I didn't think that, I'd be able to get an education. So, like, I became comfortable, and I didn't understand I was an addict at that point either, and I didn't understand what addiction was. So, like, I just kept chalking it up to, like, I'm young, I'm having fun. I'm young, and I'm having fun.
Because in a way, like, normal people, like, people who aren't addicts, like, can just go drink for a weekend and like they think it's like I'm a kid having fun
and show up to work on Monday.
Like
me, like I'm not going to work and I'm running until I go back to prison. Like that's where and that was the thing. And then when I started going to prison, that's where I found my safety at. Because I would go to prison and like all the stories you hear about prison, like it's really not like that. It's
what is it like?
I mean, it's one of those things. Like if it's all on how you carry yourself. Mm-hmm. And in the state of Pennsylvania, being from Philadelphia and being from where I'm from, like when I walk into a prison, like it's automatically like, oh, he's okay. He's from the neighborhood, he's from the city, like he's good. So like I would go into prison and like crazy shit would happen, but it wasn't like I was never like a prey to anybody, but I always carried myself. I never carried myself as like a victim. You know, so like people couldn't come and victimize me. You know what I mean? But I found safety in that. And then I seen how those actions correlated, how I acted on the streets. Because like on the streets, and when I'm getting high, I become a predator. You know, and where I come from, it's a whole, like, look, like Kensington is a whole different world. There's nothing, like the closest comparison that people can have is Skid Row. But, you know, for anybody's ever been to Skid Row, like, you know, Kensington is Skid Row times a million.
Really?
Yeah. You know, because it's like, it's not that you just have people out there getting high, but you got on a daily basis, there's people getting stabbed, shot, robbed, all these things that are going on, and they're happening right there. Like, it's normal in Kensington to like walk up the block and see a cop on this corner, and then like, you know, 20, 30, 40 feet away, you see somebody like smoking crack and shooting dope.
Yeah.
You know, it's normal to see like cops, like a cop cruiser sitting on a corner, and right across the street, like people are having a shootout.
Yeah.
You know, like the cops, people aren't afraid of the cops. You know what I mean? So it's like, so it's one of those things, like it's the chaos that goes down there, and it's so ingrained in that area that like I don't know if there's ever going to be a point in time where it's not going to be like.
You don't think it can ever turn back?
I don't think so. I think it's way too far gone. You know, and just from being, you know, I remember being a little kid and running around those streets, and it wasn't as bad as it is today, but it was still bad. You know, and that's a whole nother thing, like when you get into the politics and the city structures and all that, like how it's designed like it's like anything in life, like you gotta have good in order to have good, you gotta have bad.
Yeah, I agree.
You know what I mean? So they try and keep it contained to a certain area.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah,
so
I heard not to get into the politics, but but to get into them.
Yeah.
I heard that Skid Row, it's like, it's really, they built it like that, like early LA.
Yeah.
To keep it contained in that area, and they're okay with that.
Yeah.
Like if you cross a certain line, like they're like, no, you have to, they push them back that way towards Skid Row.
Yeah, and they used to, like in Kensington, they did that, like back in the early 2000s, it was like Kensington and Somerset, and then like they cleaned that up, and it moves up to Kensington and Cambria, and then they clean that up, and then it moves up to Kensington and Allegheny, and then it goes back down to Kent, and it's still all fucked up, but like that's what they do. They'll push people just down a couple blocks, you know, but it's still infested. Like, you know, Philadelphia is known as, it has the biggest open air drug market in the entire world. Definitely the country, more than likely in the entire world. There's no bigger open air drug market. I mean, you walk, there's block after block after block where they're selling anywhere from, you know, $250,000 to $1 million worth of drugs a day.
Damn.
All in nickels and dimes.
That's crazy.
You know what I mean? So like, so that's when the politics get a part of it, like there's a lot of money out there. Mm-hmm. You know, you're talking a good, you know, 10 to 15 corners that are pushing close to, you know, on an average $500,000 a day. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know, you're talking about $5 million a day just in commerce going through that area. So, you know, of course, money plays a part in it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I feel like it's set up, dude. It's rigged.
It is.
It's like a lot of people, like, I really do believe addiction is a disease that lies in our head, and I feel like it's just the whole money. Like a lot of people are money hungry, and they just profit off of addicts who literally feel like they can't live without a substance.
Oh yeah. So we become a commodity.
Yeah.
That's our stigma, is that now we're a commodity, right? So when we're getting loaded to the alcohol companies, to the tobacco companies, you know, to the dope boys out on the corner, we're a commodity. You know, we're a way for them to make money.
Yeah.
You know, and then you know, like in my situation, right? So it was in early 2018. I just came home from a parole violation hit upstate in Pennsylvania. I come home, the girl I was with, she was still in prison. You know, I never thought about like not getting loaded. So like as soon as I got out, that's the first thing I did. I started getting loaded. I'm right back out there on the streets. You know, and these people, they come and they approach me and they say, hey, we're going to do this documentary about the opiate epidemic in Kensington. And it's like, there's been a fucking opiate epidemic in Kensington since the late 70s. Like, this isn't new to us, you know? And at the time, I was on a run from state parole. So when they approached me, I'm like, there's no way I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Like, no way.
TV, no.
Yeah, no, I'm cool. So then she got out, and I remember that night we were at one corner, and I shot her in her neck with some dope, and she goes out. And I started hitting her with Narcan, and that was the first time, like, I prayed to God. I was like, God, if you wake her up, I'll do whatever it takes to get her out of here. And after like the third or fourth Narcan, she pops up. And that next morning I called her, I was like, look, like, I'll do it, but she's got to be involved, you know? And then a couple of days later, he started following us around with cameras and stuff, you know? And during the course of them following me around, I wound up getting locked up. And I go to court, and initially the judge wanted to send me back to prison, but then I was doing that, and you know, I had an opportunity to come out here to treatment, right? And so the judge let me out. He let me come out here and go to treatment. And I remember in Philadelphia, I walk out of the courthouse, which is down like 15th and Market, and I walk out, and I'm right there on Market Street, right where Independence Hall is, right in the middle of Philadelphia, and all these cameras come swarming up to me, right?
Yeah.
And I see my sister, my niece, and I start walking away. I'm like, fuck this, I ain't doing this. Like, I just wanted to get loaded. And my niece comes up, and she's like, Uncle Bill, like, please just like chill and listen to these people. You know, and she saved my life, and I did. I stopped and I listened to them, and they were like, hey, you know, it's TV show intervention. You know, we're going to send you and her to a treatment center out in California. And I was like, all right, bet, let's go.
Yeah.
You know, and the plan, and my plan wasn't like to come out here and get and stay clean. The plan was like, all right, I'm going to go out there, get my weight up. I'll check out, see how the heroin is on Skid Row. And then, you know what I mean? I'll make my way back to Kensington.
Just like hang out.
Yeah, you know, and, you know, God seemed fit to show me a different path, you know. And then it's like I came out here. And the reason why I'm saying this, it ties into that. You know, when I come out here and I go into this treatment center, that's a luxury treatment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Big multi-million-dollar house. You know, the high-paying therapist. You know, all that stuff.
3 meals a day, all that.
Great chef, all that stuff. And every night they're taking us to these 12-step meetings, right?
Yeah.
And I start listening at these 12-step meetings, and you know, and it changed for me. You know, and I think that was like the first time in my life like I had hope, right? And then I started learning about the disease of addiction. You know, like the stigma, like, oh, that addicts, like, we can just stop. Like, it's a choice. Yeah. Like, it's not.
It's not.
It's not a choice. And I wish it was. If it was a choice, like, we wouldn't have to have treatment. We wouldn't have to have recovery. If it was a choice. You know what I mean? Because I never, like, who chooses to be living on Kensington Ave, you know, while people are looking at you like you're not a human being. You know, who chooses not to shower for months at a time?
Yeah.
Who chooses to walk around with open sores on their bodies? And, you know, who chooses, like, what girl chooses to hop in and out of cars for $5 a piece to get the next? Who would choose that? But the thing is, like, as addicts, once we put one in us, like, we lose all power of choice, right?
It's like not us anymore making the choice.
No, it's not. And then we get into recovery, we start learning who we actually are.
Yeah.
You know, and then we got to figure out, do we like this person? You know, and that's a hard thing. You know, a lot of people, a lot of families, like, they send their family members to treatment, and they automatically, they think, oh, they went to treat, they're good. They're good.
Yeah. They're
good. You know what I mean? And then this person comes back, and the thing is, like, yeah, you stop getting loaded, but you're still stuck with yourself.
Yeah.
You know, now, how do we fix ourselves, right? And then that's where we become a commodity, right? Because, like, it's like they basically tell you, like, nobody gets it on their first go around. So when you walk into treatment and they say, oh, out of 100 people, only, you know, one of you are going to stay clean. So you're automatically, all your hopes are dashed from the door.
Yeah, why do they give you that? Why do they throw that statistic at you?
Well, one, it's real. And number two, you know, treatment's a business. Again, so not only we are a commodity in our addiction, we also become a commodity in our recovery.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like, especially people in your, see, so like I came out here through intervention, so I didn't have private insurance, right? I didn't have I don't think I ever had health insurance, but you know what I mean? But so like I didn't have my mom and dad's insurance to cover, you know, an expensive treatment, right? I didn't have mom and dad's insurance to cover my outpatient after treatment that's going to help pay for my living. I didn't have that, right? But like your age and your age group, like you guys have that until the age of 26. So these treatment centers, they see that and they're like, here goes our commodity. So we don't have to put the effort in, you know, because we got them between the age of 18 to 26. Like, we'll have them, you know. I mean, this day and age, it's not crazy to hear somebody say, oh, I've been to 30 treatment centers, 40 or 50.
Yeah.
You know, because you got the insurance. You're a commodity, right? So people that work in the treatment field, to them, it's like, so why am I going to put the work in? Why am I going to put the effort in? So it's like one of them things, like so we're set up to fail.
Yeah.
I'm not saying treatment doesn't work. It is. Cycle.
Yeah. It's not that it doesn't work. It's not just like, it's not like treatment offers you that place to kind of just like get clear-minded and kind of like look at yourself. Oh, I'm feeling feelings now. Like, this is weird. Provides you a little bit of insight and like beginner therapy, you know, like they can't get so deep and crazy just like in that 30-day period. So like you in 30 days isn't shit. It goes by so quickly. And they kind of don't give you that unless you really do like outpatient, like get in a program, like you kind of, and just like go fly back. If you don't do that and fly back home, you're kind of like not left with any resources, and then you're gonna go back to what you know.
Left to our own devices.
Yes.
What are we going to do? We're going to do what we know. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. So how are you going to break a habit forming like situation? And you're like, how are you going to break that in 30 days?
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, so we come to these treatment centers and like, it's exactly what you said. In 30 days, we can't get to the bottom of anything. And it's like, and it's like, I fully believe what treatment, the best thing treatment does is it gives you some space in between where you're at and your last use.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully in that space you find recovery. You know, and then because once you find recovery and you start doing the work, is that you start uncovering all that shit. You know what I mean? Like I always say, like there's 4 pillars on why people get loaded. It's through thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors. It's either one or a combination of those 4 things of why we continue to use. You know, so it's like identifying those things, and then ultimately that's when we start the process of recovery. But, you know, but then we look at the stigma of it, like, you're a junkie, you don't deserve to get better. You know, well, you know, and then we start classifying as a disease, and it's like, oh, well, you know, and then you have these arguments, oh, diabetes versus addiction.
Yeah.
How's it correlate? How's it the same? Well, you know, addiction's just like diabetes. Like, instead of us doing insulin, we do recovery. You know, and if we don't keep up on our recovery, our spiritual defenses to that next drink or drug is going to be down. You know, we're not going to have any defense towards it. Just like if you have diabetes and you eat too much sugar, you know, you're going to go into a diabetic coma because you don't have insulin to even you out.
Yeah.
You know, that's how it's looked at, like a disease, you know, and the disease of addiction is broken down, you know, it's you got the physical, the mental, and the thing that science or any of these, you know, educated people, they can't get to the root of is the spiritual nature of our disease.
Yeah.
You know,
it didn't make sense to me for a really long time that like addiction, a disease. Yeah. I was like, I'm not sick. I feel fine. Like, it didn't make sense to me. It took a really long time to like wrap my head around. And then even still today, like not thinking about like addiction being a disease for a while, I'm like, wait, how is it a disease again? You know? But like it really does make sense. Like, you look at it as like, it's really internal sickness. You know what I mean? Like, not having a real way to like, not having learned a way to cope with life and feelings and our thoughts. And a lot of people who have like mental illness, like mental health disorders, tend to also turn to substances.
Yeah.
Because
mental health and substance use disorder go hand in hand.
Yeah, for sure.
Goes hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. It's just impossible. And that's like, but then it's like misdiagnosing people with mental health, right? So it's like, this is the thing, like somebody like me, like I don't suffer, my mental health isn't as crazy as like some other people's, right? Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like when I first get clean, like of course I'm going to be fucking depressed. And of course I'm going to have anxiety. Like you just took my fucking solution away. You just took, like, I love shooting heroin. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people don't talk about that either. In the beginning, like as addicts, we go through this grieving period to where we got to grieve like that person who we thought we were going to die as.
Yeah.
And then rise above and become this whole new person. And for me, that was like the craziest transition for me, because it's like, if you look at my life and my resume of like going to jail at a young age, being in and out of jail, being from where I'm from, growing up in the family I grew up in. My father was an addict, alcoholic, that died in alcoholic's death. A lot of people in my family have died alcoholic and addict's deaths. So when you look at my resume of my life, like, oh yeah, no shit that I wound up becoming a junkie. Like, what else was I supposed to do?
Yeah.
Compared to, like say like a soccer mom from Calabasas, that drinks 3 boxes of wine a night. So how do me and her identify with each other, right?
Yeah.
And it's finding that commonality. You want to know how me and her identify with each other? And it's like, and I do this all the time, and it's like, because I'll say to that soccer mom, like, when you're in your active alcoholism, and you go in a bathroom by yourself and you look in a mirror and you fucking hate that person you look at, I get it. I get it. Don't change. You know what I mean? It doesn't change. That feeling does not change from one person to the next. Like, we all have that feeling.
Yeah.
And all we're trying to do is we're trying to subside that feeling. Trying to become okay with living with that feeling. And it's like, and then we try and get help, and then we come into this place, like I said, we're a commodity in our active using, and then we're this commodity when we're trying to get clean and sober, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like we go to these treatment centers and we're looked at, and mind you, so I work in treatment. Mm-hmm. I work and I work in these places that are considered, private pay insurance, treatment centers, right? Now, it's like I say to these people all the time, the thing that sucks is like you're looked at like you're only as good as your insurance policy. That's how people want to look at you. You know what I mean? Like, have a shitty insurance policy and try to go to one of these like A-list places. Like, you can't, right? But then, like, what I found out, instead of complaining about the problem, I'm going to do something about the problem. So I started working in the field of treatment. Right. Mm-hmm. And I started out at the bottom, and I'm slowly but surely working my way up. Right. Because I want to try and evoke change. Right. Because like today, like that whole thing, like choice, like today I have a choice. Right. Mm-hmm. So it's like once I stop getting loaded and I do some work, I regain the power of choice back. Right. Like if I go and get high today, it's because I chose.
Yeah, you chose that.
I chose to get
But
high.
Once you do it, it's not a choice anymore.
Yeah, but once I put that substance in my body, mm-hmm. I have no power over my actions. And like I said, thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors. Right? So I gotta always be mindful of those 4 things. And that's like something that I learned in recovery through the 12-step process was like, thoughts turn into feelings turn into action, or feelings turn into behaviors turn into actions, right? Mm-hmm. So like if I can catch it at the thought, so it's like, I remember like, so I had a little bit of time clean, and when I first got clean, I had like 10 months, right? I remember writing down the things that would make me want to get loaded again, right? And I wrote down these 5 things. I said, if my mom died, if one of my siblings died, if one of my nieces or nephews died, if I lost that relationship, or if I lost my job. If any of those things happen, like, I'm going to get loaded. And at 10 months clean, I get a phone call. Well, no. Yeah, I get a phone call on a Friday night. That girl that I was with, that I loved, that I would do anything for, I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I get a phone call from her telling me that, hey, you know what? Like, I'm with somebody else, and I don't want to be in our relationship anymore. I was devastated. I was hurt. And through that, I allowed that feeling to turn into a behavior and an action. And through that action, like, I wound up losing my job. Because like I went crazy and that showed my ass. But these men that I met in recovery, like, they didn't give up on me, right? So like they had me come and sleep on their couch, right? And I went and I slept on this guy's couch, and I was there. I was there for about 10 days, and I found another job right away. And it was like my first week on this job, and I get a phone call from back home. It's my mom saying that they found my little sister dead in a recovery house in Philadelphia. She decided to do one more, and she didn't survive. So like these three things, like those five things I wrote down, like in a 10-day period, three of those things happened.
Damn.
You know what I mean? But the crazy thing is, like, I didn't get loaded though, right? I just kept pushing and I kept pushing. But what happened is, like, is I allowed all that shit that we get through getting clean. I allowed that shit to block what was really going on. Like, I wasn't telling people how, like, I would lay down in bed at night, crying myself to sleep, like, just wanting to shoot dope because I couldn't deal with the pain of all I was going through. I didn't share that with anybody. I didn't tell anybody that stuff. I kept it to myself. And I would show up and I would go to these meetings, and then the TV show comes out, and now all of a sudden, like, I become this person that I can open a door for a lot of addicts back home. Mm-hmm. I can help a lot of addicts back home get clean. Because like where I come from, we don't have this shit.
Recovery?
I mean, there's recovery, but like we don't have the ability to get to recovery, because in order to get to recovery, majority of the time, like you need stabilization. So you need some type of a treatment. See, like in Philadelphia, if you want to get clean in Philly, right? Say you're homeless out on the streets, right? You've been out there for months homeless. And one morning you wake up, you say, you know what? I want to go to treatment. This is how that process looks, right? You go to an assessment center. They have them all throughout the city. There's like 5 or 6 of them. You go to this assessment center, and and they put you in this locked room with these hard plastic chairs, and they tell you, look, you're going to be here for the next 24 to 72 hours, right?
In the assessment center?
In the assessment center. So you're sitting in there, right? And they tell you, like, it's not guaranteed. We can't guarantee we're going to get you in any place. I'll use a small number to make it easy. So say out of 10 people, right? 10 people that show up, maybe 7 of them will survive the full time that they're there. 7 of those people are automatically going to get up and walk out the door. Because once you start getting dope sick, and you could walk out the front door and buy a bag of heroin for $5 and get well. Once you get sick, you're not going to sit there and you're not going to stay sick. So 7 of those people are getting up and walking out. Now, out of 3 people that are left, what's going to happen is 2 of those people, they're not going to find a place for. And then that one last person, let's cut that person in half. Half the person's going to find a detox for them. That other half a person, they're going to tell them the only way that will help you is if you get on some type of maintenance. So nobody's trying to get clean.
What is the maintenance about?
So it's in Philadelphia. It's mainly methadone.
Yeah, there's methadone,
Suboxone, Subutex.
So what is that about?
Morphine. So and that's the thing too. This is another big stigma, harm reduction, right?
Yeah.
Real quick, brief lesson on harm reduction. Harm reduction started in the late 60s, early 70s when the men were coming back from Vietnam. They were coming back with habits. They were hooked on heroin. And then what happened, they would come back and, you got a place like Harlem and Philly and Baltimore and cities in Jersey where, Detroit, in Chicago, where heroin was prevalent, right? So you had these cities. What happens is, like, people go there, become homeless. they'd start committing crimes in order to get their drugs. So they came up with harm reduction. Harm reduction wasn't to reduce harm for the addict. Harm reduction was to reduce harm to society around the addict. So then they came up with the methadone programs. Methadone program looks like this in Philadelphia is how I know how it looks. Is you go into this one facility, you go in there, they get you stabilized on a dose, they kick you back out into a methadone clinic. That methadone clinic, they're open 7 days a week. You got to go there every day to get your dose. 3 to 5 days out of that week, you got to go and you got to sit through like IOP groups for about 5 hours. Yeah, about 5 hours a day. So like your whole life becomes revolved around this methadone clinic. Like if anybody watches this from Philadelphia, in the comments talk about how the methadone clinics are in Philadelphia, it's fucking wild.
Yeah.
And outside these methadone clinics, you can buy any drug you want under the sun. So it's set up for failure. Yeah. And then, years later, they came out with Suboxone. And the thing is, like, and look, I don't knock MAT. It can save people. What I knock is that they don't have a set formula. Like they'll put you on the shit, but they won't get you off the shit.
Yeah, because they'll keep making money.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, like I just had somebody come out. My little cousin, I got her out here from Philly. She's 4'11", weighs 110 pounds. She was on 140 or 120 or 140 milligrams of methadone. Plus she was doing fentanyl on top of it. Right. I brought her out here. She, I got her to detox. I was working at that time. We scholarshiped her through there and we got her off of the maintenance. She got totally clean. Yeah. Sent her to a sober living. She went to that sober. But during that time, like, she started going to 12-step meetings. She got a sponsor. She started working steps. She found, that opposite of addiction, and as we know, the opposite of addiction is connection. She finally got the ability to connect because like when we have a substance in our body, it's hard for us to not only connect with the people around us, but to also connect with that spiritual malady that we suffer from. So once take all the substances out, she's been able to connect to something. I mean, she's got 6 months clean now. You know what I mean? Yeah. And on top of it, it's not like it's not that she just stopped doing drugs. Like, when things happen, like it's crazy in recovery, things just start happening out of nowhere. Right? Like, so,
they really do.
So she just like, she got her driver's license back.
Yeah.
I told her, hey, you need to get your license. She got her driver's license back. She got a job. She's doing for herself. Like in 6 months, she's done more in the 6 months of recovery than she's done in all the time she's tried getting clean before. Yeah. And it's because I feel out here we kind of have a system that works. You know what I mean? With the community that we're a part of in recovery out here. And it works. And we have the numbers and we have the statistics to prove that it works, what we do.
Yeah.
And it is. And it's like, and now like, so the thing like I want to do with life is like I want to make that bigger than just like what we had, this community we have here. I want people, because look, like when I came out here, if I didn't find hope, like I wouldn't have stayed. You know what I mean? Because like look, like we're coming off the streets, we're coming from trap houses, abandoned houses, coming from living in our cars, sleeping on the sidewalks. Like if I'm coming into treatment and you're not like directing me into some type of a hope for something better, what the fuck's the point of doing it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like doing things like this, like seeing like, like my story is a big one. Like I don't have any formal education. I prison, streets, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's all I know. I mean, I've been out here for a couple of years, even though, so then like what happened after my sister and that stuff died, I stayed clean for a while. And then like a little over a year later, my niece that saved my life that day, she's driving home from work and she gets into a car accident and dies.
Damn.
You know what I mean? And I just had like, but what happened is during that time I disconnected from my community. I disconnected from, I put cracks all on my foundation. And that shit crumbled. And I had no defense towards that next drug. So, like, I saw it out. And it wasn't even when I relapsed, it wasn't to get loaded. Like, I just wanted to die. You know what I mean? And it was like one of those things, like, and for some weird reason, I got loaded for almost a year and I didn't OD once. It's like, what the fuck? So then my whole perspective had to shift. And I had to understand, like, with my sister and my niece, like, they died, I didn't. So I had to really like get to the nitty gritty of things of like, look, there's a purpose behind everything. And if I'm not fulfilling my purpose or if I'm not chasing my purpose, then I might as well move back to Philly and be on Kensington Ave getting loaded. But my purpose is to one day be able to go down there and, those people that I care about dearly, I mean, because like you can go on YouTube, like if you go on YouTube and you put down Kensington Ave and all those videos they have of down there, majority of people you see in those videos are people that I know.
Really?
Yeah. Like, and it hurts, man. It hurts. Like when I go and I buy my new car and I got this really good paying job and I walk into the nice house that I live in and lay in that bed and like I'm happy, but then, and I go and I work at these upscale treatment centers and, like I was just working at a place and we had like a shit ton of open beds, right? And I walk into work and we have one facility where we got 6 empty beds and then another facility where there's 3 empty beds. So I'm looking at 9 beds and I go home and it's like, and one of my homies from back home hit me up and he's like, bro, like I just want to fucking die, bro. Like I just want to die. Like I'm so tired of shit. Like I just want help. You know what I mean? And I'm like, and there's nothing I can do. There's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
And then I go to this place and there's like 9 open beds. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Like, this shit don't make sense. You know what I mean? So it's like, so I know what my purpose is that like those phone calls, I want to turn those phone calls from me just like, instead of me just saying, hey, bro, like, I love you. I care about you. Like, hang in there. I want those phone calls to turn into me being able to like, all right, you're ready?
Get your ass
bro,
out here.
boom, I got a plane ticket right now.
Yeah.
Go down to Philly International. I got a plane ticket waiting for you. Hop on a plane. I got you, bro. Like that's for me. That's going to be success. Like that's what success to me doesn't look like $1 million house or $100,000 car or any like I don't care about any of that shit or or a 6-figure a year job. Like that's not success. Success is when like I'm able to like reach back and like all my homies that are still out there that have no hope and have no desire to get clean because there's no hope, for me to be able to be that hope and desire for them one day. Like that's success for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want to evoke change in this, and this stigma of like, addicts are just pieces of shit and addicts are just fucking, scum of the earth and they just take up space. Like that's not fucking true. Like it's not true. Like like I challenge anybody that has that point of view. I challenge you to go to a place like Skid Row or Kensington Ave or the Tenderloins in San Francisco.
I saw the
or go up to 3rd and Pike up in Seattle and go to these areas where it's a large population of addicts and fucking sit down and talk to these people. And realize how fucking smart these people are. How talented these people are. I remember this guy Billy out on Kensington Ave. I'll never forget this dude. And what he would do, right? This is his whole hustle. He would have a whole big ass box of chalk, right? And he would catch somebody at the corner and he'd watch them walk up. And as he's looking at them, he would just be on the sidewalk, just doing all this shit on the side. And by the time that person got to him, it was a full-on portrait of that person on the sidewalk. People would tip him. Like, this dude was so artistically talented, it wasn't even fucking funny.
That's crazy.
Like, I'm talking about from a block away, he would look at somebody and be able to their whole portfolio, like their whole thing, the whole portrait. By the time they got to me, it would be done, and people walk up and they would like, I mean, like it's not even just the talent of his art. It's just like the emotion that he would evoke out of people. Like somebody's having a bad day and see somebody do that, and like just see like somebody cry because somebody cared enough about them to do something nice for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it is so it's like all this shit that like the people out there don't deserve anything better than what they got is fucking bullshit. And like me, like I was not a good addict. I was not a good addict. Like I robbed
Me
people.
neither.
I did a lot of bad things to people. I didn't go to prison for being a good dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? But they gave me the chance and opportunity to change things, and like I can wholeheartedly say today, like I'm a good dude.
I think you're a good dude.
And I strive to be. And I make mistakes and I fall short, but like today, like I admit when I fall short.
Yeah, we wouldn't be human if we didn't make mistakes.
Yeah, and it's like I care about people like after losing my sister, how I lost my sister. My sister was in a program and I paid for the treatment center she was in or for the recovery house she was in. And my mom would go and pick her up in the morning, take her to work with her. And my mom showed up one morning. It was like probably like 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. My mom knocks on the door. And these people answer the door. Like, oh, you didn't know? They found Maggie dead in her bed at 1 o'clock this morning. You know what I mean? And like my mom had to show up to a door, and be told that her youngest child died from a drug overdose, and it took 9 hours before she even knew that her daughter was gone. She wasn't homeless out on the streets.
Yeah.
Like she was in a place where she was supposed to be safe. And it's like, and like the thing that sucks about all this is like, it don't matter how clean I get, it don't matter how successful I get or how much I do. Like my mom, that spark in my mom's eyes are gone. It's gone. And I came to terms that I'll never be able to make that better. I'm okay with that. I know I'll never be able to make it better. But if I can like prevent another family from having to go through what my family went through, losing my sister, like that's a win for me. You know what I mean? Because like my sister was another one, great human being.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And she just decided to do one more. She didn't want to. It wasn't by choice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Thing is, it wasn't by choice. She didn't want to die.